A pleasant day to all. I'm Dr. Pauline Ngo, a pediatric cardiologist and a lifestyle medicine practitioner. As a pediatric cardiologist, I often encounter patients with comorbid conditions on top of their diseases, among of which is obesity. Childhood obesity has reached epidemic levels in developed as well as in developing countries. And the mechanism of childhood obesity includes a lot of factors, including environmental, lifestyle preferences, and the cultural environment. Of course, we have to admit that there is an excessive sugar intake, increased portion size, and a decline in physical activity. There are a lot of effects of childhood obesity, and there is an increased risk in non-communicable diseases, including metabolic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, orthopedic conditions, even neurological, hepatic, pulmonary, and even the kidneys. So the question is, are obese children, will they develop obesity in adulthood? 55% of obese children become obese in adolescence, and 80% of obese adolescents become obese in adult. However, we should take note that 70% of obese adults were not obese in childhood or adolescence. Here is a study entitled Do Obese Children Become Obese Adults? A review of the literature, and this again state that indeed they may be at increased risk of becoming obese adults. Well, obesity did not just happen overnight. From neonatal period, the primary nutrition the baby gets has a huge impact on his or her future health. Human milk is essential for infants' growth and development right after birth and is an irreplaceable source of nutrition for early human survival. The incredible human breast milk has just the right amount of nutrients that baby needs and lowers the risk of many illnesses, including obesity, heart disease, and even cancer. And various infant formulas tried to imitate human breast milk. However, they could not. Well, what does human breast milk consist of? 87 to 88% of water, 7% carbohydrates, 1% protein, 3.8% fat. Well, how about formula? Well, the formula, it is really full of sugar, high fructose corn syrup. In fact, by its name itself, milk formula, it's already suggestive that it is an ultra-processed food. And when you feed ultra-processed food right from the neonatal period, you are already priming the baby to have a leaky gut because it is an ultra-processed food. Okay, and also take note that fructose doesn't signal satiety as well as glucose. So the baby will crave for more and more. And baby wants to eat and overeat, not just during his infancy period, but even when he becomes older. When the baby becomes toddler, they are fed with a lot of food. And when the parents are not intentional, there are certain foods that we thought are suitable for kids. For example, cereals, juice, even fries, and biscuits. Sometimes we may give stick bread in order for the teething, but actually, these are not healthy. By exposing the babies to this kind of food, they are being set to crave for more food that are extreme in flavor, the sweet and the salty. And what do we put in lunch boxes of our kids? More sweetened drinks. Take a look at this very famous or very popular drink that is favorite of kids. And look at the sugar that it contains. So one serving size contains about 14.7 grams of sugar. And that's just the drink. How about on the other side? It is a juice. And you'd be happy because the total sugar is 11 grams. However, take note that the 11 grams is just with a serving size of half cup. Who drinks half cup of pineapple juice? Actually, we drink more than half cup. Oftentimes, it may be even 2 cups. So you multiply it by 4. 4 times 11 is already 44. As the children grow, they're exposed to the standard American diet or the SAD diet. And it becomes normal, causing them to crave for, again, a lot of this unhealthy food. When children are exposed to healthy food when they are young, they will learn to eat a balanced and nutritious diet. But in the modern hurried world, many families are opting for shortcuts. And so this leads to obesity. When the kid becomes obese, they would think of ways how to uh, decrease their weight. So the next question is low carb diet applicable for children? Well, I searched and found this latest release, a news release by the American Academy of Pediatrics. They issued a policy on low carbohydrate diets for children and adolescents with or at risk of diabetes. And they said that they cites concern over how overly restrictive dietary patterns may affect their health. Well, here's another study published in Pediatrics, October 2023, low carbohydrate diets in children and adolescents with or at risk for diabetes. And it says that carbohydrate restriction is increasingly popular as a weight loss strategy and for achieving better glycemic control in people with diabetes, including type 1 and type 2 diabetes. However, evidence to support low-carb diets in youth, children, and adolescents 2 to 18 years with obesity or diabetes is limited. There are no guidelines for restricting dietary carbohydrates consumption to reduce risk for diabetes or improve diabetes outcomes in youth. Thus, there is a need to provide practical recommendations for pediatricians regarding the use of low-carb diets in patients who elect to follow these diets. Well, what was their conclusion? Their conclusion is there is a paucity of data on dietary patterns to reduce risk for diabetes or manage diabetes in youth. And they point to the use of balanced dietary patterns, such as that recommended by dietary guidelines for Americans, increasing dietary fiber, reducing consumption of ultra-processed carbohydrates. They also say that they're not recommended for children, and they would reduce nutrient-poor carbohydrate intake by minimizing the consumption of processed food with high amounts of refined sugars and added sugars, and eliminating sugar-sweetened beverage is recommended. Well, this is good. And they found that eliminating the sugary beverages and juices significantly improves blood glucose and weight management. That I also agree. And however, they said that dietary restriction of any kind can be associated with physical, metabolic, and psychological consequences, including risk for disordered eating in children and adolescents, with additional risk for those with diabetes. Well, anyway, in spite of this, let me just share with you one of my patients. J.I. is actually a 12-year-old boy from Bacolod City, Philippines, who came to see me with a chief complaint of chest pain. And the family history revealed that they had hypertension. The father's side, the father himself is hypertensive. They had asthma on both sides, even heart diseases. So on physical examination, J.I. weighs 66 kilogram with a height of 1.51 meter, and his BMI was 28.9. So my diagnosis at that time was ABCD, adiposity-based chronic disease. In other words, obese. They put a fancy name to it. And I requested for some laboratories, including CBC, SGPT, creatinine, CRP, lipid profile, a 2D echocardiogram, chest X-ray, and a 12-lead ECG. So what did we find? Well, his CBC, not so significant, but we found an elevated triglycerides, and the HbA1c was a whopping 9.1, and SGPT was elevated. His 2D echocardiogram showed mild tricuspid regurgitation, mild pulmonic regurgitation with a fair left ventricular systolic function. And the chest X-ray was still normal, and ECG also normal. So, well, I had a talk with JI, reminding him or sharing with him the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which include healthful eating of whole plant-based food. Of course, plant-based doesn't mean vegan or vegetarian. Encourage him to increase his physical activity, and identified whether he had some stress and how to manage it. Another pillar was to form and maintain relationship and to improve sleep and avoid risky substances. So for my recommendation, particularly for I recommended a low carb diet, which means taking away a lot of those unhealthy carbohydrates that he had been so used to eating. So that includes zero sweetened drinks, avoidance of ultra processed food. Also recommended to him, or rather suggested to him, to take up some form of exercise. Just start with walking because of his fair LV function. Just 30 minutes. We started with 15 minutes and gradually increasing up to 30 minutes. And to improve his sleep and to take some supplements. And so for specifics, what were the sample food for JI? Encourage him to take vegetables like cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, also some pumpkins, green leafy vegetables, cabbage, which his mother would make into cabbage rice, okra, tomatoes, cucumber, lettuce. Actually, for kids that have a challenge with eating vegetables, I usually would say, what is your favorite? And we start with that, those that he can tolerate. And of course, meat, it would be in the form of pork, beef, lamb, and preferably they would be moist, cooked with moist heat and not high dry heat. And of course, I would also suggested seafood for him, such as fish, clams, shellfish, poultry, such as chicken or duck, eggs. Eggs is very versatile. Yeah, he can cook it hard boiled, he can have it scrambled, omelette, or steam egg with mushrooms, or any other egg recipes. Legumes, which he likes, so he gets to eat mongo with malunggay incorporated in it. And of course, white beans, lentils, not so much on starchy root crops because we were targeting our 10% weight loss. Fruits, it's also quite limited, encouraging him more of the not so sweet fruits. And nuts, That would be his go-to snacks. Walnut, almond, peanuts, pistachio, and of course, the oil would be the good oil, coconut oil, olive oil, butter, ghee, avocado oil, and to avoid seed and vegetable oil. So mostly, the mother did the cooking, and that is good because they would know what's going inside. So what happened to after the intervention? Let me show you his laboratories. He did frequent follow-ups with me. And so the February 28th was the first time we had his laboratories showing the elevated triglycerides and the whopping HbA1c of 9.1. After 1 month, the HbA1c, which I didn't give any medication, became lower, 7.02. And after 3 months, we repeated the lipid profile, and by that time, his triglycerides was already normal. And the HbA1c decreased further from 9 to 7.02 to 6.36. And this time, the SGPT was normal. After 5 months, the HbA1c finally became normal. So how about this weight loss? On February, he came to me with 66 kilos with a BMI of 28.9. On March 31, that means 1 month after, his weight becomes 62 with the weight loss of 4 kilos. And after 3 months, he lost a further 7 kilos. And after another 2 months, 4 kilos again. And by October, which is approximately 8 months, nearly 8 months, he was able to lose a total of 17 kilos. And his BMI this time is 21.21. So here is JI. This is posted with permission. In summary, after 1 month, the chest pain went away. And after 5 months, all the laboratories were normal. And after 8 months, the BMI is normal with a total loss of 17 kilos. So everybody was happy. So I want to share with you some tips for parents on how to develop healthy eating habits. I know it is a struggle, especially when the kids have already started eating unhealthy food. But here are some tips. Make the nutritious choices appealing. Second, we want to focus more on the food pattern rather than specific food. Whole, minimally processed, or even moderately processed. That means resembling to its natural form as much as possible. And also be a role model. You don't expect to feed your children vegetables or cucumber sticks while you are gorging on the potato chips. And you can disguise the healthy food by hiding them or incorporating them into a dish, such as putting the beans inside the stew, the legumes inside the beef stew. And of course, if you engage or let the kids join in food preparation, from shopping up to the preparation of meals, and teaching them to read labels and to identify the healthy food and to buy colorful food. And of course, to cook more meals at home. I know it's a struggle, but you can always cook in batches, maybe just 2 batch or 3 batch, and put some of this in the freezer, and you can just make a salad on each meal and use the stew as the main dish. And of course, always make healthy snacks available. You can put like nuts or seeds rather than the biscuits or cookies or chips. And we don't want to force our kids to clean up their plates and limit their portions and have a healthy relationship with food. Don't use food when one is stress or use food as a reward, maybe use other forms of rewards. So, what would be our key points for my short talk? Childhood obesity is becoming an epidemic. An early start on a healthy lifestyle by breastfeeding and smart choices of complementary food for growing children is a good way to go. And even though there is a paucity in research supporting low-carb diet in the young, there is actually increasing evidence that it is effective and safe under close medical supervision. And my example would be my patient, and he is not just the only one, there are more. And indeed, the parents, we parents, you parents, play a great role in developing our children's healthy eating habit. And lifestyle is medicine, because for JI, even though his HbA1c was 9.1, he wasn't put on a hypoglycemic agent at all. So let me end with sharing this Bible verse in Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that includes also eating habits, training up a child in good eating habits. And lastly, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Well, that ends my short talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care and God bless.